one.
All right, welcome to another week of Fragments of Silicon reviews. Two reviews this week. First up is the. Um, I'm not exactly sure what to ascribe to this game. It's called Tumbleseed. No.
Honestly, you probably know something about Tumbleseed because it's been heavily promoted, at least for the Switch version.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, it's like if you're a Switch user, you probably know Tumbleseed. It's been one of the more notable eShop titles. Yeah, and like all the promotions I've seen, including our own interview, had the HD Rumble feature heavily talked about because it's.
Which I guess this is a game where the HD Rumble does help a lot with, what's the word? Immersion.
Yeah, I'm like, word of not so much warning, but of note, we all played the PC version of Tumbleseed. Uh, Nobody here played the Switch version. Like,
Yeah.
we did not get codes for that, and I don't think anyone was willing to spring $20 for this game.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but I really didn't have the money on designated for Switch this week.
Yeah, more on the price, in a later segment. But yeah, first of all, if you don't know what Tumbleseed is, it's a roguelike uh, tumble simulator, I guess. Like
It's really hard. It's kind of trying to make up its own genre, aside from being procedurally generated for the most part.
Mhm.
But it has a sort of RPG-like story, although it's short. And you control a seed, and you don't actually control the seed. You control the vine that the seed is constantly balancing on, and not very directly at that. And your goal is to get from the base of the mountain in your seed village to the top of the mountain to try to save the mountain from some kind of monster thing that's putting all kinds of holes in it.
Mhm. Mhm. That's a that's a good description of what the game is.
I mean, it's
And
basically the gameplay will remind you of rolling ball puzzles.
Mhm.
Like the thing where
It's
you can't actually directly control the ball to guide it through the maze, you have to control it by tilting. Except instead of tilting the whole thing here, basically you have a pip on either edge of the screen that you can move up or down to control the tilt of the vine, and then the seed rolls along the vine,
yeah.
which is where
Right.
the HD rumble comes in, because as it rolls, it rumbles a little bit.
Right. So, going back to our interview, the direct influence for Tumbleseed is a relatively obscure arcade game called Ice Cold Beer. I'm like, which is basically a vertical version of the Tilt Maze puzzle, which has a history dating all the way back to the 50s. But Ice Cold Beer in specific, that's where they got the idea for the two joystick tilt mechanic. Um, that it's a more um, I hesitate to use the word basic version, but let's just say Tumbleseed does a lot that you could never do in an actual arcade game. Like, this wasn't a video arcade game, this was a mechanical arcade game. So it's all real moving parts.
Yeah, and I mean it when I say this game has like an RPG style story going. I mean, it's not super deep, but like there's dialogue and there are powers you choose and there are different areas and stuff.
You have
Yeah.
quests.
Hmm.
Hmm. You have lore. I'm like, it's all very elaborate for a very simple game.
Yeah, I initially thought this was more or less just a simple puzzle game, and I'm kind of torn because part of me thinks it might have been better that way.
I'm gonna say it probably would have been definitely better that way. You know, it's like I said, I think I mentioned this back in the interview, but it reminds me of when people kept shoehorning stories into puzzle games. Like, Tetris doesn't need a fucking story.
Tetris World.
Except for maybe Puyo Puyo Tetris.
Quite, but I'm like, I quickly got tired of speaking, because it's also, even like speaking to people, even like doing
Yeah, you have
anything
to
and
roll.
everything.
You have to roll into their text boxes using the same tilt controls as you use for everything else.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, guess what? That's actually a lot more cumbersome and tedious than it needs to be. You know, it's one of
Heck,
those.
just getting into and out of doors of buildings can be a pain.
Yeah, I like to call this taking a gimmick too far,
Uh-huh.
because it's one thing to do it in the actual gameplay sections, but if you're doing it in like the hub world, the menu screen, what have you, yeah, that's a little much.
To be clear, the only things in this game, once you're playing, that you do that aren't involving moving the vines up and down so that you roll back and forth are pretty much changing your type of seed, which you start out with a seed called the flag seed, which uh, when you roll over a patch of seed and have a unit of crystal, makes a save point, which is good because sometimes this kind of procedurally generated game is bad about checkpoints, and this one seems to be pretty good about it since you can make your own.
Um, I can add to that. The, they're not so much save points as they are checkpoints.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing. Um, if you roll into a hole, you'll be taken back to the last flag. And here's the thing. Um, Down past a certain point, you'll start to lose health. So if
Right.
you haven't rolled a flag seed in a while, you're either going to take like 2 hearts of damage, or you're just gonna die.
Right. The and there are other forms. There's the crystal form, which when you roll over, there are these little patches of soil everywhere in the game that are sort of your main mechanic for interacting with the world besides enemies.
Mhm.
Uh, the crystal one gives you a couple of units of crystal after you roll over 3 patches. There is the what's it called? Thornbush?
The thornberry, which is
Thornberry.
yeah, which is how
Whatever.
you weapons. Like,
Right, and that is when you have
Thornvine, actually, is what
Thornvine.
it's called.
When you have a crystal and you roll, when you in your Thornvine form and you have crystal saved up and you roll over a thing, you get a crystal blade that orbits you, and if you hit an obstacle or an enemy with it, it destroys the thing. But they're all one-hit things. However, you can have, I tested this, at least 9. I think it's probably more like 10 or 12
yeah.
Thornvine spikes. And then beyond that, you get other forms.
Actually, there's
But
one
I
more.
believe we were.
There's one more. There's the heart seed.
Oh, the heart seed is fixed,
Yes.
which I assume after you roll over a few spaces, if you have crystals, you heal.
Yeah. Not only do you heal, but you can get more hearts.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's one of the central dynamics of the game. Um, you are tasked with balancing all 4 forms.
Apparently, there are
Because
other forms, but they're
yeah,
random and procedurally generated. Which ones you get on each run?
yeah, th- yeah, there are, yeah, like Petty Fan has one of the optional forms, let's call them, right now. You get them in secret caves, or you can buy them in town. Like, um, but they like this one provides more powerful attacks, with very powerful lasers. But in order to activate, in order to activate a sage seed point, it requires 3 crystals. Like there's a
That makes sense.
yeah, well, like there's a power that allows you to create heal points that takes 5 crystals. Yeah,
And
really
again,
powerful.
and we mentioned you can buy them in towns, and again, that's kind of a thing that works against. There are towns. It's because it's not quite RPG like in progression, but having towns kind of broke what little immersion I had because you're on the Vine thing, but the Vine doesn't affect anyone but you.
I'm like curious. All right. Anyway, so these are like the main mechanics of the game, and it's and because this is a roguelike procedurally generated yada yada yada, um, you only get one shot to get up the mountain each time. Like if you die, and believe me, you will die. Um, you will go all the way back down to the bottom of the mountain, and you will start again. Like I'm trying to remember what the quests do exactly. Like
Um,
I want to say they give you more crystals.
yeah, just completed one. I'm going back to the area now, so I can find out.
Mm-hmm. Because I only like did one of those quests. I don't recall it doing anything. Like, but it's
Did you go back
like
and turn it in?
yes, I did, and
Okay.
it did like it still didn't really do anything.
Huh.
Maybe you have to get multiple quests. I'll be honest. I didn't seek the quests out because playing through this game vanilla was enough as it is.
I guess
Yeah,
it's
there are
supposed
lots
to
of
give
little
you
holes
new
you have to.
skills of some kind.
I guess I'm like
There are lots of little holes to dodge, and you don't have very fine control. So
No,
yeah
that's one of the big problems with this game is you can't really move fast.
yeah
unless you tilt really sharply, and then you have like no control.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
like I'll be honest. Speed wasn't my problem with the game. It was control
Yeah, that's what I
because
meant.
Same here.
way too often I would hit an enemy. Oh, and another thing, the special powers are fucking bullshit because you can get damaged by them yourself. Like I had more than one power. Like I had this ghost follower power that killed me because I hit it. That should not have been a thing at all.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like that, you know, because that, like that just made. Honestly, I stopped getting the special powers because of that shit. Honestly, that's one of the big problems with the special powers. The other is some of them cost way too many crystals to be of any real use. Now,
And they
get
did
it.
say in the interview they're not doing the Binding of Isaac / whatever other game thing where there are some power ups that you'll only get after you've unlocked them on earlier runs. So theoretically, every power is available
Right,
randomly.
and you can also get like gold crystals, which are 5 crystals. Yeah, those don't appear all that often, but they do exist. So I think that's where that's where the power for the for the powers that use like 3 crystals or 5 crystals or any large amounts.
I wonder if there's an upgraded crystal form that makes you drop 5 crystals instead.
I don't know. Like I'll be honest, I don't think any of us played this game for that long. I'm like, and that's kind of a hint of, you know, we all seem to be on the same page here. Like, this is a game that's really, really interesting and unique, and
Mhm.
it's got a lot of personality. Playing the actual game, I couldn't do it for more than an hour
Yeah, its
because
controls hold it back so much.
yeah, it's like there's just such a lack of precision and finesse that this game demands of you.
Yeah.
I'm like, and
Yeah, it's not. It feels like they had a really cool idea for like a setting, and they had a really interesting idea for a control thing, and they didn't play that well together. So this game is kind of stretched thin in terms of accessibility.
Yeah, this is one of those games that actually having gyroscopic control might help a little bit, because you'd have finer movement compared to with kind of sloppy movement of a joystick.
yeah, I'm like maybe something like the Joy Cons. Um, not only with gyroscopic but pointer movements.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Just
and even the Joy Cons, I actually think that I was playing with a controller, and I was using an Xbox 360 controller. And remember, your only relevant controls are up and down on the analog sticks. And I had some weird feeling in my hands from the left stick being higher up than the right stick. So I had a hard time getting them to feel balanced to me.
Yeah, and like I'm
And I
playing
wonder
this
if that would be
game right
better
n-
if you were using a PlayStation controller, which is the only one left that has balanced analog sticks.
Yeah, I'm currently playing this on a DualShock 4 for anybody wondering, or like, you know, people who
mhm,
care. It on my screen it is being played on a DualShock 4.
indeed, and yeah, and our conclusions here are actually kind of lining up with everyone else. Like, I've read some other reviews of Tumbleseed, and yeah, a lot of people just do not like the controls here.
Yeah, it's a cool game. It's not the most fun game to play. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and like especially in this isn't a game you play for a long time. Like, uh, in fact, the other mode is the daily challenge, you know,
Which
which
is
is
everybody who accesses the daily challenge on a given day gets the exact same map. And the
right.
goal is to either get as far as you can or get to the end with the best, the most life left, or the most whatever, or as fast as possible.
Yeah, and you only have one shot to do it as well.
Yeah, and again, falling down holes doesn't kill you instantly, but it does take away one or more hearts, which is, it gets to killing you,
Right.
Hmm.
especially if you haven't planted enough flags.
Yeah, and yeah,
The
this game.
story mode does drop down a couple of gimme flags, especially early on.
Mhm.
I imagine less of those later.
Right, and at any rate, um, yeah. So shifting to the graphics, well, as you can see on our screen here, the game looks gorgeous. Not just in terms of fidelity, but I really like the art style.
Yeah, it's almost like paper cutouts.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Now, it's another thing that makes it really stand out, uh, even amongst all the other things that make it stand out. I'm glad that they, you know, this is where like all of the maybe not so much the lore, but having something beyond the basics really make for nice flourishes because um, if you look at the arcade influence, or if you've ever played the horizontally aligned maze game, they're pretty bland.
Hmm.
Like I'm looking at a picture of the ice cold beer arcade cabinet here, and it's just like a block of wood with holes in it. I'll send this to my colleagues here so they can get a glance. But it's like and I guess this is something I should have asked in the interview, but if they had the desire to emulate this style instead of going in their own direction, because this definitely would have evoked a sense of nostalgia. Because even though I don't think too many people have played the ice cold beer, I know that the original Maze game was fairly popular. Like
Hmm.
how I remember playing with a version of it um, in the '80s, for example. So now, let's see, the music and the sound. eh, like I'm really not sure how to describe this. Which oh
Sorry about that.
Someone got buzzed by an airplane. No, I'm kidding. That was a motorcycle.
Yeah. Anyway, the music is pretty catchy, pretty theme appropriate, but not that memorable. Like, and I don't. Let's see. I don't know if the sound. Like, I don't think the soundtrack is available.
I didn't
But
see it on the store page earlier today.
like,
Actually, it's there. Yeah, it's downloadable.
Oh.
$6.99 for $7.
$7. Jeez.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Right. So, finally, the price. There's no other way to say it. This game is overpriced.
Yeah, I get what they're aiming for. That they added that there's a story and theoretically a lot of replayability and stuff. But again,
Yeah.
I think this game would have been an easier sell at least if it was a little bit simpler.
Well, it's like I'm like at $14. This is among the most expensive roguelikes